Oh my, I have been transported into the avatar, the wonderland, the fairyland, where I immediately feel like I'm walking in a forest. I've arrived at a beautiful water feature and I am simply just absorbing it all. This is a garden that's been created by Dave Moore of Classic Plants. It is a spectacular garden. It's called the Disconnected Tree. The idea behind the garden is all about everything eventually turns into compost. Whether it's the bark of a tree, whether it's the trunk of a tree, whether it is the plants that are here. At some point we all have an end, but the end doesn't stop there. It then becomes composted and feeds the soil and continues the circle of life. And for me, folks, this garden does so much more than that. It takes me away into that beautiful, calm space. I can see this under a tree. I can see it at the end of a walkway, and I can see beautiful paths meandering in between it, so that I too can have this in my garden and be transported to that beautiful place. The centerpiece of this garden is truly spectacular, taking tree trunks, repurposing them, and giving them a place in the garden. Forming a water feature, this guy behind me is 3 disused tree trunks that have been cored up the center, literally water feature pipe put in, and a fiberglass circular pond below it. It shows you that literally with anything you can create something like a water feature within your garden. The water dribbling down there reminds us that we're sitting on the cliffs and watching water dribble down with a tree trunk in the way, emulating nature. The plants that have been used in between, where literally bits of the wood have been gouged out that are starting to rot. There's peperomias in there, they're orchids, there are maidenhair ferns, and man, it's so gorgeous. It's cooling, it's soothing, and it's incredibly relaxing. Let's take a closer look at some other plants that have been used in this garden that you could use in your garden back home. All the plants that have been used in this garden would ideally be suited to a semi-shaded position, remembering that this, of course, is creating that forest look. So semi-shade, let's take a look at some of these beauties. Right here is the gorgeous Perennial Aquilegia. Can cope in really cold climates, literally where it gets -degrees. It can also do in coastal gardens where there's quite a bit of wind. They ballerina flowers, coming in whites, beautiful mauves, and even pinks. Fantastic in a meadowy look if you're wanting a country style garden. A little bit further we've got New Guinean Patients, which love to be in the semi-shade. Remember, they're a true perennial as well. When they start getting too tall and lanky, you've literally just got to give them a good pruning, thick layer of compost at the bottom, and a good feeding. Other plants that have caught my eye here are these little beauties. Aren't they nunu? It's a little indigenous chinkery chi. It's a small bulb, hundreds of little small bulbs in the soil there, and they are evergreen, amazing plants. Semi-shade, even to full sun, and they make a welcome addition to any meadowy garden, even a grassland garden. And of course, one of my firm favorites at the back is the Plectranthus Moana Lavender, Indigenous, beautiful mauve flowers, lovely underside on the leaves, and man, spectacular. And one of the epitomes of all winter and early spring gardens are, of course, the foxgloves. And getting over 1 meter in height, 4 to 5 flower spikes per plant. And of course, if you're in the cooler parts of South Africa, the foxgloves will go on year after year after year. This garden is all about repurposing and showing that anything can be used in your garden space, that a tree will eventually die, will eventually turn into compost and become part of the landscape. But using these elements very cleverly to create an entire garden. Look at the bench, old pieces of wood, literally a bit rinky-dink, some of them even starting to fall apart with moss growing on them, has formed the perfect old world bench where you can sit and relax and enjoy the water feature. I love the fact that the logs and the tree trunks with the mosses have been used as edging. Remember, never discard them because they can get used in your garden setting. And of course, they're a great place for all the good little hohos to hide in your garden place. What I do love the most is the water feature right at the back with the panels and the vista beyond it that create that look of a water feature falling down, and beyond it is that borrowed landscape that we so often talk about.